Hi, I'm Andrew Anderson of Jerry's Chevrolet in Weatherford, Texas, and we're proud supporters of Texas music. So it's our pleasure to present this week's Texas Legend here on the Texas Music Scene.
Our Texas legend this time is the rarely understated and highly talented Steve Earle. From Guitar Town to Copperhead Road and back again, Steve has had quite an influence on many of the young Texas red dirt artists, as you'll see right here.
Steve Earle is one of our bigger influences. He's, I think anybody in this scene that's our age or right around this age is pretty influenced by Steve. You know, he's recorded some of the really cool, groundbreaking country rock records of our generation. And I remember listening to him when I was like 12 years old and just thinking, like, this is it. You know, there's nothing cooler out there than this.
He's kind of a guy that I think he was the youngster in the group coming up with Towns and Guy Clark and all those guys, and it's really cool. I think getting to look back on the music that he's made, being both a peer to those guys, but also influenced by them. But I mean, I don't know, he's just a guy that's made, I think, really relevant records from the beginning, whether it's Train a Comin', you know, Corazon, and but even up through everything going on. He's so politically active. I think that he still has something to say, and he's still making great records.
He's political on one end, and he's just real on another. And he has that way with words, and his songs make you think. And the album Train a Comin', I remember going to Waterloo Records and asking the people back there, I said, I need to get a Steve Earle song. All my friends are listening to him, and I don't know any of his songs. What should I get? And they said, Train a Comin'. I got it, and on the album is a song called The Mercenary Song, and I don't know if he's a big voracious reader or he just, you know, knows things, but he's able to take pieces of history and write about them in a really interesting and, you know, kind of glorious way.
I sat down for myself for once, you know, and started writing this song, and I was just like, man, this is going to be an amazing song. You know, it's called I've Never Been So Much in Love. It talks about Stillwater girls, you know, and just I've never been so much in love. And I played it out live handful of times, and one of my buddies that I used to live with said, man, that sounds a lot like I Ain't Never Satisfied. Well, I listened to a version of my song and back to back with that song, and it wasn't similar, it was exactly that song. And so that's how much of an influence Steve Earle was on my writing. And so I haven't played it since, but he's for sure an influence in my writing.
There's a lot of other people that, you know, influenced Steve Earle to get him to where he was, and then, you know, I think him and a couple of guys around that 1986 era, you know, that came out at that time. Lyle Lovett had a record out, and Rodney Crowell and Steve and Dwight. Yeah, they called it the class of '86, but those, you know, half a dozen records that came out that year were, I think, probably huge on everybody in this scene.
He is a lot of fun. He will talk your ear off, but he's got great stories. He told this story about him and Towns when they were living together in Nashville. They used to catch snakes, poisonous snakes, copperheads and rattlesnakes, and take them to the local university because they were doing a study on venom, and they'd get like 10 or 12 bucks per snake, and then they'd go buy liquor with it. But they lost one of the snakes in the back of the in the trunk. They had them all in a pillowcase. Anyway, they found it about a week later.
I met Steve Earle the first year I moved to Nashville, and I was a struggling songwriter, and he was a little further ahead of me on the food chain, and I didn't know it, but I was standing in line for Chinese food at this little hole-in-the-wall joint for lunch, and there was a guy who was standing in front of me, and he was wearing boots just like I was, and he just looked like he was from Texas, and he kind of said something when I was trying to get a menu, and his accent just totally gave him away. I was like, man, where are you from? He goes, I'm from Selma. And I was like, I'm from Del Rio. And he introduced himself to me, and we stood in line, and by the time we got to the counter, he realized that I didn't have a publishing deal, and he did, and he bought me lunch. And gave me tore off the back of the Chinese food thing and gave me his phone number, and we've been friends ever since.
Steve Earle is a huge influence on me when I was growing up and just starting to write songs. My dad introduced me to him, and you know, the Guitar Town record, and I listened to that thing until the tape broke, and then went and got another one and broke it too. And he's been one of those guys that he's been able to move around with different stuff. He's gone political, and he does the broken heart songs and the on the road tunes and like just all of that. He's really been a huge influence to me. I love the kind of that country rock that he's had behind his music since day one.
He's somebody I truly respect. I went to see him in concert once, and he was exactly what everybody said he was going to be. He did what he wanted to do. He did it beautifully. And whenever somebody yelled out for him to play a song, he would stop and flip them off and ask them if they wanted to leave and say, you know, did you write the songs? Or did you make the set list? Then shut up, you know. And that was pretty much what everybody said he was going to do, and I thought it was kind of cool. He went on, and everybody cheered, and the guy that made the noise, people were hitting him on the back of the head, telling him to shut up. And so, Steve Earle, man, you don't want to mess with that guy.
Well, stay with us, folks. We got more Texas music right here on Texas Music Scene, right after this.